Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crushing Defeat podcast.
Welcome to the Crushing Defeat podcast. My name is Blake Richards. With me is Dan Burrington.
Hello.
And Jessica Bunce.
Hello.
So on August 8th, the U.S. government, the FDA specifically, put into place some new laws regarding vaping. So Dan, as you know, I smoked cigarettes for years. You smoked cigarettes for years. You quit because you had a child, which is very noble. I quit because I didn't like the smell. It wasn't even because I wanted to save my lungs. I didn't even really care about that.
I could see that with you. I could.
Yeah, when you're young and free and wild, you just don't give a crap or a heck. You don't give either of those. So I didn't. I just quit because it was smelly, and I didn't like walking around smelling like I just ate a turd. So the nice thing about vaping is it didn't have the smell. In fact, it has a pleasant smell. Just so happens that there's a bunch of side benefits, including, health, wealth, and fitness, all of those things. But anyway, the FDA, as of the 8th of August this year, now classifies vaping as a tobacco product, which I find kind of concerning and kind of an issue because there's no tobacco whatsoever in vaping. So there's some good and there's some bad about this new law, and there's some people that are loving it. Specifically, pharmaceutical companies are loving it, specifically the ones that make nicotine substitute products like the gum and the lozenges and stuff, because ever since vaping became popular, the sale of those products has decreased dramatically. And as we know, Big Pharma has quite a bit of lobbying power in the government. But anyway, let's kind of cover real quick what this law entails. So the first thing is, like I said, it did label vaping, specifically the hardware and the liquid, together or separately as a tobacco product. So even the mechanical battery or the electric battery and the tank, that metal and plastic and battery components, that's now a tobacco product. So that's the first piece of it. The good part of that is, since it's been classified as a tobacco product, is now no one under the age of 18 can purchase them.
I think there's probably some others too. I mean, they're going to be able to tax that now as a tobacco product. The Food and Drug Administration will have some control over it, and they'll be able to regulate it a little bit, where they couldn't really do anything before because it was this kind of nebulous thing. What is this? We don't know. But if it's a tobacco product, they can go in and say, okay, we need to make sure that your nicotine levels are the way you say they are. Because there's not really a regulating body on that stuff. You could be getting something that, I don't know, what's your nicotine level? You're low.
3 milligram.
3 milligram, but you might actually be getting 6 milligram. Now, I know you actually spend a long dollar on your stuff, and you get good stuff, but you also know that there's some jank out there. Maybe there's horrible filler in that jank too. So I'm not a big fan of government regulation, but when it's something like this that potentially, especially maybe you're low income and you're vaping and you get your stuff at the gas station out in the middle of nowhere, that stuff could be horrid, heinous, horrible.
Yeah. So to your point, there are definitely some positives about this new law. Let's actually start there. So again, anyone under the age of 18 cannot buy vape pens, equipment, or the liquid, which is good. What's interesting is most states already had that as a state level law. So it's just kind of confirming what was already in place. But now with this new law, if you are in a vaping store and you look under the age of 27, you have to be ID'd, which is good. So that's a win. To your point, the other piece that's coming, it's not quite there yet, is that manufacturers of the liquid are going to have to conform to certain standards. So one of the problems with contents of the liquid previously is that some companies use diacetyl. I believe this is the same stuff that is cancerous that's in your microwave popcorn. So a while back there were some folks at the microwave popcorn factory that actually sued the company because they were all getting sick because that stuff that gives you that buttery flavor in the popcorn is poison.
Can I take a quick sidebar on this?
Sure.
Okay, this is a PSA for everybody out there. Don't get microwave popcorn. You have a stove, popcorn popper costs you like $10, $12. It's super cheap. It takes oil and popcorn. And the popcorn is delicious. Nothing pisses me off more than microwave popcorn. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. I'm done.
Yeah. But anyway, back to this law, this August 8 law. Some other good stuff is companies manufacturing the liquid, they're going to have to put that stuff through testing, and they're only going to be able to put in certain components. So as you said, I'm pretty careful about what I buy, and I only buy the premium liquids that are higher in VG content. So there's two main liquids in, I guess, e-cigarette juice or vape juice. One is called VG, which is vegetable glycerin, and just like it sounds, it's a vegetable-based thing. And the other one is called propylene glycol. This is not as cool of a chemical. This is actually something that they put in there to make it last longer. It's a preservative, and we don't quite know what very high propylene glycol levels in vape juice that go into your lungs consistently will do long term. So when people say, we don't know what it's going to do to people 50 years down the road, that's the piece, that and the diacetyl are the pieces that might be scary. So that's good, is that these things will be regulated, and that the manufacturers are actually going to be required to put ingredients lists on their packaging. So that's something we didn't even get with cigarettes. You don't look at a pack of cigarette and know all 827 chemicals that are in there. So that's good news. But anyway, some of the, I guess, more opportunistic stuff, some of the stuff that I have issue with regarding this law. Number one, stores are no longer allowed to say that electronic cigarettes are any better for you than normal cigarettes.
So what do you think about that? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a terrible thing, and here's why. So the UK government just recently published a study. They did a scientific, using science, scientific method, not just like their opinion, like we get a lot here on this stuff. A scientific study that proves that e-cigarettes are 95% better for you than a traditional tobacco cigarette.
Well, 95% better how, though?
Meaning less harmful. It's a harm reduction type of thing.
I mean, my counter argument to that, and I'm playing devil's advocate for fun, but my counter argument to that would be that if you're saying that it's better for you than smoking, number one, that could be somebody trying to get somebody into cigarettes that hasn't smoked before, tobacco products that haven't smoked before, or it could be somebody that might try smoking cessation and instead tries this.
Well, and that's what they're finding more of. So you're not getting, there's some folks that start with an e-cigarette, but they're not typically the ones that have nicotine in there. Maybe sometimes they do. We can kind of talk through that, especially as we get to kind of the teenager concern over e-cigarettes. I think that alone is an issue, is the fact that they call it e-cigarettes, even though it's a completely different thing. It's not a cigarette in any way, shape, or form. It should just be called a vaping or something else, something completely new. But when the product first came out, they marketed it primarily as a cigarette cessation product. So they wanted to use the same name, and that's why they used to look like cigarettes as close as they could get. And you're not seeing that so much anymore. But yeah, this study from a harm prevent or a risk or a less harmful perspective, if I smoke a cigarette versus if I vape the same amount, the vaping is 95% less harmful. And what that comes from is less carcinogens, no tar, none of the other bajillion chemicals, so long as you're getting a decent liquid, that type of thing. But that concerns me that honestly, these places can't use their First Amendment right of free speech. And when customers come in, give them their true opinion of the product that just happens to be backed up by a scientific study. They now cannot say one way or another whether or not it's better. And all I can think of is, what possible reason would there be for this?
Well,
what possible reason could there be for that to be included in
there's
the law?
an easy way around that, though. Rather than saying, this is definitely better for you, this is a much better product for you, you could say, listen, with cigarettes you get ammonia, you get tar, you get smoke in your lungs. With this, you get water vapor
Yeah.
and nicotine.
Yeah.
Make your own decision.
I'd be interested if they would get
I would
in
be,
trouble for that.
and the people that are going to make that decision and make that change are the people at the vape store, like the people that you go and see. When you go to a gas station, that dude behind the counter doesn't give a shit what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, you want Newports instead? Done. Here's your new piece. Have a good day.
Right.
I just feel like this is completely different from smoking. I almost feel like it's not even another option. I just feel like it's just so different. Like I can't see somebody going from vaping and being like, well, I'd consider smoking cigarettes. I feel like this is just, it's a whole nother thing. And I think that lumping it in with smoking and having it as a smoking option really doesn't fit it anymore.
Oh, I get that. I appreciate that. Again, I guess this is me coming from being a dad and also somebody that smoked for, how long did I smoke? 15 years? 17 years. I smoked for 17 years. So if I could go back into the past and beat the shit out of myself for picking up a cigarette, I would. The fact that nicotine is as addictive as it is, because I quit smoking, but I also quit smoking 6 times before. I haven't had a cigarette in 4 years, and that's not a clap for Dan moment. I just got lucky. And I wouldn't say that I quit. I just say that I don't smoke anymore. I haven't had a cigarette in 4 years, but that doesn't mean you quit. You never quit quitting. That being said, nicotine, still a super addictive substance. So I don't like anybody getting in on it regardless of the type of product that it is. I think that it's a bad product to be in. Now, I love the fact that you vape, Blake, because I do believe that it's healthier. I think that's a great thing. But I also don't think that it's a healthy thing for people to start doing.
What's interesting about that, and I'll be curious to see what further study shows, but there's a couple out there, and this is completely new science, but there's a couple out there that say that it is not actually the nicotine that is so severely addictive about cigarettes. It's the nicotine in conjunction with a lot of the other chemicals that are in there, and that's why they put them in there. The combo of those things that makes it so severely addictive, and that people who are vaping, and that's why you'll see a lot of folks drastically reduce their nicotine levels. It's one of the things you mentioned at the onset. I started off with 18 milligrams and quite easily dropped down to 3 and will, eventually be at 0 pretty quick here. So what's nice is there's some science recently coming out showing that the nicotine alone may not be as severely addictive as we previously thought. It's the nicotine in conjunction with the other chemicals that are either in, dip or cigarettes. So we'll see. We'll see what the science comes up with there. I'm not going to say for sure one way or the other, but what people do know, the way that these are being used is people moving from cigarettes to vaping, and not, like Jessica said, people moving from vaping to cigarettes. That just doesn't occur. So here's another thing, and this is kind of potentially controversial, and some people might get a little bit feisty of their opinions one way or the other, and that's the whole concept of kids and teenagers. So you may remember back when there was like Joe Camel cartoons.
Yeah.
And there was this outrage about, oh, these cartoons are appealing to kids, and we need to get rid of Joe Camel because going to get kids smoking, and that's the whole reason they came up with this. Well, now there's this same outrage with vaping because the packaging, the type that I like of e-liquid are the sweeter ones. So on the packaging, they'll have like a cute little strawberry or, a nice little banana. And now the outrage is that because the packaging is showing fruit in an attractive manner, that's appealing to kids, and that the market's going after using the packaging. So to me, it could say death sticks with skull and crossbones XXX, do not use this ever, and then underneath say raspberry chocolate, and I would still buy it.
But that's the difference, though. If you go to countries like Canada, where the outside of a pack of cigarettes has a picture of a cancerous mouth on it,
Right.
The smoking is much, much lower than
No,
it is in the United
hell
States.
no, dude.
That is
Look
true.
that shit up. No, it's not. I swear to you, that packaging has made zero impact on people buying cigarettes. I promise you, my friend. But that's fair. Maybe it would. Who knows? And maybe less kids would. But I feel that we are having less kids start smoking cigarettes because of it. So again, it depends on your opinion. Ideally, we wouldn't want kids doing either, but I don't know, and maybe it's the wrong opinion, but to me, I'd rather have them doing something that's a less harmful alternative than smoking. So where this shows up in studies is that certain teenager range, I think it was like 13 to 18, has gone from a few years ago where 16% of young adults smoke down to 6. And I'd like to think that this has had an impact on it. So again, obviously being someone who uses it myself, I'm a little biased. And Dan, that's why I wanted your opinion too, because being someone who has stopped smoking, I think obviously I may need a little bit of level set, but some of this law stuff I thought was good, and I think some of it concerned me, and it seemed very targeted to go after these products. But anyway, what does this mean? Well, there's now a moratorium on any new products being introduced to the market for the next 2 years while this gets implemented. What that means is if your vape battery or your liquid or your whatever has not already come out before August 8th, it will not be able to be introduced to the market for 2 years. The good news is once this became popular and very, very profitable, we've had a landslide of products come out, and anything that was out already will continue to be able to be manufactured, which is good. Same with the juice. Other things that this means is free samples can no longer be provided. It used to be you could go into a vape shop and try their flavors for free. You now have to pay something for those samples or for trying that. And what most shops are doing is they're charging 10 cents or $1 to try their samples. So that's another piece of this law. Trying to think what else was included.
I would like to see this eventually replace smoking completely. Like I just think they should get rid of smoking, and if somebody needs to use nicotine, this is just a whole new thing that I don't see as smoking, but a new hobby and way to get that nicotine. But also you can still go running, you can still be active, it doesn't ruin your lungs, you can do a lot of other activities that promote a healthy lifestyle.
The problem with that is that there has to be a tipping point at which the tobacco companies like Philip Morris see the switch being okay. So right now, Philip Morris, other companies like that, they do not make e-cigarettes because right now they're lobbying that e-cigarettes are bad for you. Don't do it. It's chemicals. Don't get e-cigarettes. They're bad for you. And they're the ones that have all the money behind the lobbying. So at some point in time, they're going to take a look at the numbers and say, okay, it would make more money for us now to switch our production over to e-cigarettes. And if that ever happens, then yeah, you would see that. It would be an almost overnight thing. They would raise the prices on their tobacco products, cut back on their tobacco farming, and just have e-cigarettes as their main product.
And they could find ways to make those, the juices that go into the vape process natural, as healthy as possible, so that it just helps people to be healthier, with this habit. I mean, that would be amazing if it could completely replace that whole industry. Yet they could still make money. They could have all the add-ons, the products, the new technology with it. I mean, it's a whole new market.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that point is they are still kind of fighting it. And Dan, to your point, I think there will be a tipping point. They are Philip Morris and RJ Reynolds, they're starting to invest a little bit in it, but they're not putting near their full weight behind it. They're still kind of in a let's wait and see mode, so they're not investing in it heavily. And if they did, they could become wildly profitable again in a way where people hate them less.
Yeah.
But here's something that the conspiracy theorists are all over as to why this law was put into place. One other quick thing though about it is no vape shops can no longer work on your equipment for you. So they can no longer rebuild your coils or do any work on your equipment. Or even there's some that believe it goes as far to say that they can't even show you how to use it. Like you have to figure it out on your own, which is kind of unfortunate, but shoot, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there. But here's the interesting conspiracy theory. So back when all the tobacco lawsuits were happening and people were being sued left and right, and the government started getting involved, the tobacco companies agreed to a settlement. And the settlement states that they will give profits to each state every year. So if they make $50 and it's 10%, the state would get $5. I don't know what the percentages are, but it was this guaranteed based on how much money the tobacco companies get, they would give that percentage of it to the states. Now, cigarette smoking has gone down. What that means is that chunk of money has also gone down. Where it becomes a problem is there are many states, including California for one, that have already spent that money. So they're kind of in trouble because that money has already been budgeted for and spent. And because of the decline, they're kind of scrambling around like, what are we going to do? There's this millions of dollars or billions of dollars or whatever that we counted on in our budget from people smoking. And because people aren't smoking as much, we're not going to get that money. So again, the conspiracy theory, I don't know if I completely buy this. I would hope not. But the conspiracy theory is that the government actually wants people smoking more cigarettes and vaping less, regardless of any health alternatives, because they want and need those dollars that come from it. And the people that smoke are your lower income, socioeconomically depressed individuals, that type of thing. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting. There's maybe a dotted line there. But anyway, that's kind of the conspiracy theory.
I would say it's more likely that they just want that almighty tax dollar. Because if you classify it as a tobacco product, you're going to get a shit ton of income from vaping as a tobacco product because you can tax it.
Yeah, higher than normal products. And I think that's fine. And no one has issue with that. Where people have issue in the vape community are things like not being able to talk about this UK study that was done, or, like the one I just said, not being able to have shops help you with your equipment or rebuild your coils that heat up the liquid and create the vapor, that type of thing. There's just stuff that was included in this that is asinine. And the last one is PMTA, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but basically it's going to be an approval to produce and sell vaping products, and that's what this 2 years is for. So the 2 years is designed to allow manufacturers to submit for their PMTA. And the PMTA will be the government signing off saying that this product passes our standards and that type of thing, and you're okay to manufacture it. The problem is to date, only one manufacturer has been able to get something through the PMTA process, and it costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to get that through that process. So what happens is you've got a lot of small companies, a lot of small startups that are going to be completely kicked out of the business because they can neither have the resources nor the time to go through this PMTA process because it's so overpriced.
That sounds like something that Big Tobacco would have put forth in lobbying.
Yeah, which it's a bummer because it's not that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing to have that go through that process. I love it. Make sure there's not popcorn poison in my vape juice. I don't want that. And honestly, that's why I don't buy the house juice, because I have no freaking clue what they put in it. And that's what I started. I started with going in and being like, hey, mix me this flavor in your back room where I can't see what you're putting in it. So there'd be rat poison, sprinkle a popcorn cancer stuff, a sprinkle of whatever that they're putting in there. And then they come out and give it to me. And it always just tasted more chemically. So that's why I moved to the stuff that already comes prepackaged in a bottle where I can research online what's in there, that type of thing. So I think that's all good. But to your point, Dan, the fact that it's cost prohibitive is just sketchy. And I think you're right. Who has the money to be able to get that done? Big Tobacco. Who doesn't? Joe, the one, I can't remember the name of the company, but they're out of Wisconsin, and their juice has a picture of a cow on it, a small startup. And already this business is like a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. It's supporting tens of thousands of jobs nationwide. And it's just unfortunate that one of the burgeoning industries that we have that's actually helping the economy may be destroyed.
Well, that's to, your point. That's one of the reasons that we only have a few tobacco companies, and that's why we will only have a few vape companies. They make it cost prohibitive so they don't have to regulate 4,000 different bodies.
Yeah.
And so now we'll have 3 big vape companies, and eventually they'll get bought up by the much bigger tobacco companies.
Which in turn might switch their entire product to be vaping, which I would love. I would love to see cigarettes go away. I just want to see people live a healthier life, and I think this is a way healthier option for people, and it's a new thing. I really hate to relate it to cigarettes because I feel like it's just completely different from that, but I just feel like it's different.
They've done a pretty good job of they've done a good job, I think, of distancing themselves from cigarettes lately. I tried quote-unquote e-cigarettes, I want to say it was almost 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, when Blue, like BLU, that company came out. And I bought this stuff for those, but that was built to look like a cigarette. It was a black tube. You put it up to your mouth, you sucked on the end of it, and then the end of it glowed blue. Everything else before that, it actually glowed red. So it was meant to look just like a cigarette. And now they look anything but. They look like, an accordion, much less a cigarette.
Now here's the point that I actually don't agree with at all, but some of the listeners might be kind of thinking, back when cigarettes came out, doctors were recommending or standing behind their favorite brand of cigarettes. Hey, buy this cigarette because I like it the most, or it's the best for you. They actually promoted smoking. Nobody realized that it was an unhealthy thing. So, and that was before a lot of research was done. Doctors literally would stand behind their favorite brand of smoking. That was like around the 1950s. So some people might be thinking that, hey, there's this new vaping thing. Everybody switches over to vaping, but we don't know anything about it, and maybe people are standing behind it as a healthier option, but it's actually not. So that could be an argument of people listening to this subject.
Yeah, I think that there's something to that. I had a girl that I interviewed for a job that worked in a place. It was a vape shop in a very small town, and they literally got big bottles of stuff from China that they would put into smaller bottles and sell. And I was like, do you know what's in these bottles? She's like, it's vape juice. Yeah, I know, but do you know what's in it? She's like, I don't know, nicotine? She was like the co-manager with her boyfriend. And she was looking for a job, so that tells you how well that business was going. But they were getting their shit directly from China. Who knows what's in it? So, again, we've come full circle. That's probably one of the reasons that it is good to regulate it. I never like how the government ends up regulating things in the long run, but it is what it is.
Yeah, there's a few, I would say 2 or 3 really good things in this law, in this action by the FDA, but there's so much sketchy bad in there that it overwhelms the good that's there. So another important fact about vaping is the whole secondhand problem. So secondhand smoke can be dangerous. It can be damaging to your health. Parents who smoke like chimneys, smoke cigarettes, they've got brand new babies in their house. They're not doing their kids any favors. When they're smoking them out, that type of thing. And even, people hate it out on the streets, so I can't smoke on planes or restaurants anymore because not only is it unpleasant, but secondhand smoke can be dangerous. Secondhand vape has been proven to be completely fine, like no issue whatsoever from secondhand vape at all. And the reason is because with vaping, nothing is burned. Dan, you mentioned it earlier. It's turning a liquid into a vapor. So there's no harmful effect there. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well, and another reason to continue to make this product more available.
Yeah, vaping, one thing that, to what we were talking about before, one thing that almost proves that it is a lot safer than cigarettes is if there was anything really bad about vaping, the tobacco companies would have come forward a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They've dumped a ton of money into. Find me something. Find me anything. That like the fat guy with a bald head that is pointing at some poor schmuck, say, "Find me something. Find me the thing that's wrong with this vaping." so we can put it on the front page of the newspaper that nobody reads anymore. That's happening. That has to be happening because they are losing business share to this. They don't want to lose 2%, much less 10 to 15% to something else.
I completely agree with that. Probably most out of all of the points, because I think that how could they not have done that already? How could they, if there was something really serious, they had to have found it. So I say get on the bandwagon. Why haven't they come out with something yet?
Yeah, they haven't put their full investment capability behind it because they're hanging on to something very antiquated, and maybe they're hoping that their strength of the lobby and government will be able to get rid of vaping altogether, or at least minimize it. There are even some countries, I believe Australia is one of them, that have banned it. I don't know how the heck that happened. Like,
They banned-
smoking good, vaping
Australia
bad.
bans a lot of stuff, though.
That's crazy to me, though. Yeah, cigarettes, awesome. Smoke cigarettes, but that vaping stuff, don't ever do it. Never. It doesn't make sense. Maybe that's why they're upside down and their toilets go the wrong direction.
Australia started as a penal colony,
Yeah,
and
that's
they, like any violent movie or video game, done.
Yeah,
It's out.
yeah.
Can't do it.
Or don't they just take all those parts out? So, like, it'll be like, we're about to fight, and then it's 20 minutes further into the movie.
Like Grand Theft Auto, can't
Yeah.
get it in Australia. It is banned in Australia. That plus you would spend for the average AAA video game in Australia, it's about the equivalent of $100 American.
Wow.
People bitch about it on Reddit all the time. There's always one Australian guy that comes in and says, well, at least you're not paying $100 for this.
Well, good day, mate. Let's smoke some cigarettes. And sorry to our Australian friends down under that don't have a less harmful alternative. And I think I like that. I think I like saying less harmful versus, more healthy, because obviously it's not necessarily like, growing your muscles or making you more healthy, but it is definitely less harmful. So I would highly recommend anyone that is smoking cigarettes take the time to make the switch. One warning I will give you is that as you make that change, you'll be a little cloudy in the head. So like being a little bit groggy, like waking up in the morning. You'll be a little cloudy for about a week. Passes pretty quick, and then it's fine. That is the only type of withdrawal or, I guess, pain you'll experience in making the change from cigarettes to vaping, is you'll be just a little bit cloudy for a few days. And the reason is because obviously you're not getting all of those chemicals in addition to the nicotine. So the nicotine delivery isn't as absolute. So less of it is getting to your head, and it does take a bit for your body to adjust to the delivery system. But those few days is actually a positive thing for you and for your health.
You know what takes the edge off of that?
What's that?
Black tar heroin.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's all you need.
For sure. Yeah,
2 or 3 days of it. Honestly, don't do it any longer than that,
Yeah.
because that's a whole other problem.
Right.
But yeah, just do heroin for like a 3-day bender of heroin
Yeah,
while you're weaning yourself off of cigarettes.
there you go.
It's the best.
The best there is. Nothing. I don't know the words. Okay. Anyone who wants to learn more or get involved. So I know that I went and I emailed our local congressperson about this because there are some laws out there looking to change this FDA ruling and make it make more sense as far as, making it a little bit more cost effective to get products through, that type of thing. So there are some challenges to this out there, and none of them are looking to completely overturn it, which is nice because people in the community aren't stupid. They realize that some of this stuff is positive, but it's just looking to fix some of the broken parts of the law that are obviously full of agenda. So anyone who wants to get involved, you can go to casaa.org. Again, that's casaa.org. casaa.org. It's a tongue twister if you try to say it 3 times, apparently. And you can go there and you can get involved. And what's cool is there's even templates. So you basically go in and go, my name is Dan, and I live in Michigan, and here's my zip code. And it goes, bloop, here's your congressman, and bloop, here's an email to send them. And you just hit send email. And it's just so convenient to go in and be able to blast your local government. So if you have an opinion on this, go to casaa.org. go to the calls to action section, put in your zip code, put in your name, and it'll auto-create that email to send off to your local congressperson. And I already heard back from ours. It was your normal, like, blah, blah, blah. We look at everything and take it seriously and blah, blah, blah. And
Did she fill out a form letter? Was she like, dear, like,
yeah, yep.
your
Here's-
email about smoking things?
Yeah, yep. It was exactly like that. It was like where it's a different voice, right? Dear Blake, your email about vaping was quite interesting to me. We will take this quite seriously and review it for action. Thank you so much for emailing us about vaping. So yeah, it was kind of like that. It was very generic, which is a bummer because I've emailed our Congress people about stuff before and gotten like very specific feedback. And the good news is there are some folks in government that are reviewing this, because I've seen emails, responses online that do show attention being paid to it and not just, that generic form letter response being sent about, vaping. So anyway, that's something I want to talk about. I thought it was an interesting kind of current event type of thing. And there's lots of different angles to look at it. But to me, some of this stuff is really good. Obviously, I don't think anyone under the age of 18 should be able to get any of it regardless. And I also think it's good that ingredients need to be disclosed on the packaging. I also think it's fine if the government wants to say you can't have cartoon fruit on your packaging, whatever. I think that's fine too. Maybe just a picture of a strawberry. I don't know, whatever. I think there's a lot of good there, but there's just some stuff that just stinks of agenda, like cost prohibitive ways to get your products through, or making it so that the vape shops can't speak freely about the benefits of their product. It'd be like if you went to buy a car and they couldn't tell you why the car is good. They'd just be like, this is a car. It drives down the road. Well, why should I get your car? This is a car. It drives down the road. Yeah, but why should I get it? It has 4 tires and a steering wheel, like all cars. It's kind of terrible, like the government saying, hey, your business, your livelihood, you can't promote it or anything to people that come in. You can only like clerk them out or whatever. It's kind of crappy. So I thought it was worth discussing. Any other thoughts, Dan?
No, I'm thoughtless.
All right. Any other thoughts, Jess?
No, but that just doesn't seem fair. They should be able to promote their product. I mean,
Yeah.
Nobody else is limited by not being able to promote the benefits
Again,
of their
though,
product.
this has happened a few times in terms of regulation, and all they have to do, like I said before, they just have to say, hey, with cigarettes, you got blah, da, da, blah, da, da, blah, da, da, blah, and with vaping, you have blah. You make your own informed decision. So, yeah, they can't just say, no, this is better. And they should be able to, I agree with that, but they can't, so they're just going to have to go the long way around the barn.
Yeah.
Or they can just say, it's strawberry.
Yeah, and
And a lot of
nobody,
people might buy it.
yeah, there's nobody going into a vape store that's like, sell me on this, dude. Why should I vape rather than smoke? Sell me on it. No, they just like, what cool shit can I get? Hook me up with the coolest vape machine and the sickest flavor you have. That's what they come in asking for.
You're right. And that is good. And a lot of people go in and say, I'm interested in quitting smoking. I know a shit ton of people that have used vaping to quit smoking cigarettes. I'm sick of smelling like I just got done chewing on a turd. I'd like to switch. And I think that's where most of that came up, is when you had people coming in that were interested in switching, and it would be just one more reason to sell them on it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think most people kind of have an idea that are going into it, but I don't know, man. I'm just all about people being able to sell and say whatever they want to sell and say. Like, I don't like there being restrictions to that. If it's not, yelling bomb in an airport, I think you should pretty much be able to say it.
You used to be able to say bomb in an airport. You remember that when we were kids?
Yeah, for sure. Before there were bombs in airports.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
So yeah. Those were fun times. And, during that time, they'll smoke in airports. So
You used to be able to smoke on planes.
yeah, man. I remember I've never been on a plane that people smoked on. I never
When I was
experienced
very
that.
young, I was on a plane. But you can still, because those planes are old, they keep them in the
Yeah.
air for a long time, and they have, the no smoking sign on them. That's obvious. Nobody's like, oh shit, this no smoking sign's on. I can't smoke a cigarette.
Right.
No, you can't smoke on planes. But back in the day, they had, I haven't been on a plane in years that had this, but, 6-7 years ago, they still had planes that had ashtrays in them.
And think about all the people who didn't smoke that were affected by all that secondhand smoke. Like my grandmother, like she worked in a law office and they were able to smoke the entire time that she worked there for 20 years, and all the health effects that those people received, even though they weren't doing the habit.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But it's an interesting time that we live in, and I'm just so grateful that we have technology that is much more accurate and that can help people make alternative choices to things that'll ultimately kill them. And I can tell you I'm very grateful for vaping and the changes that it's made in my life. So I thought it was value add to discuss this on the Crushing Defeat podcast. So as always, thank you so much for listening to the Crushing Defeat podcast. My name is Blake Richards. With me is Dan Burrington.
Goodbye.
And Jessica Bunce.
Bye.
And Dan, do you want to talk about where, if people want to learn more or add feedback, where they can go?
Sure, you can check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/crushingdefeat. You can email us at info@crushingdefeat.com, or you can go to our website, crushingdefeat.com.
Okay, talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye now.